Okay, Doc. Hey, Doc, I'm not sure if you are an endo doc or not. I wasn't clear in the video I saw, but I figured I'd ask anyway, and I hope you can give me some advice. So, like the header says, I have acro. Probably in the title they sent me. Was diagnosed at 22 or 23. I'm 43 now. They took a tumor out of my head the size of a golf ball. I have little to no pituitary left. It was mostly cut out. Been on test ever since, but on account of being a pussy. I always avoided the needle, laugh out loud. So after more than 13 years of trying every alternative, the patch, the gel, etc., we covered that before, I finally balled up and took the shot. Felt way better than I did for years, but I still don't have the energy I need to build muscle. I've tried going to the gym for years and worked out like a dog, and nothing. My endos got me on about 80 to 90 milligrams per week. I doesn't want to push it. So my question to you is, if I can't find an outside source for test, should I blast and cruise to try an actual build a muscle cycle, or do you think it's too dangerous for a case like mine?
First of all, I am not an endocrinologist, no. I was trained in family practice over there at Western University, and then did an internship with over at USC California, again in the family medicine department. Most of my study has been self-study and a long history of, I'm going to be 56 this month, so a long history of, study and counseling patients, and I'll say because I never won any medals, my old history, back in the day when I used to be somebody. No, actually, with all due deference, and I mean this quite sincerely to endocrinologists, you would think the study of hormones that's who you would go to first. Unfortunately, or fortunately, it doesn't. I don't mean to put any slant on it, but the way we are trained in school, endocrinologists learn an awful lot. And one of the guys I respect the most in all my training was a guy named Dr. Wansky over at USC California. He was double boarded in internal medicine and endocrinology. Brilliant guy, wonderful guy, period. But I can remember treating a patient. He was a 73-year-old African-American male with terminal cancer, and he was wasting away. He had what we call cachexia, amongst other things. And I saw his chart, and I mentioned to Dr. Wansky, who again is one of my favorite people in the whole world. I really respect him for his knowledge. But this patient was being prescribed Megace, which is basically an estrogen. And for a lot of reasons, this gentleman was miserable. He had terminal cancer, and he was wasting away, and he wasn't doing all that well. But I piped up at the time. I said, Dr. Wansky, we've got this gentleman on Megace, and it's indicated for cachexia, to try and put some weight on someone. I mentioned using testosterone instead, and you'd have thought that I shot the dog. And Dr. Wansky, who is known for being, shall we say, demonstrative in his demeanor. Was nice enough to me, but he made it very clear that we would not be prescribing this gentleman testosterone. He was going to stay on Megace, and I remember trying to explain, this is a hormone that makes you feel kind of crappy if you're a dude. If it's in excess, it can make you moody and irascible, et cetera, et cetera. Dr. Wansky just wrote it off because again, with all due deference to him, that's not the training we receive in school, period. We might get 20 minutes of the so-called sex hormones, the steroid hormones in class, and then in the hospitals, pretty much zero.
Wow.
Why? Because you don't have a whole lot of people being wheeled into the ER with low T, right? That's not where you go. Oh my God, call the ambulance, I got low T, Low T, no, but diabetic ketoacidosis, thyroid storm, they call it, when you have an excess thyroid, that's an emergent situation, both cases. That you will be wheeled into the ER, and I saw more cases than I ever want to see of both those. And so, that's where we get our training. So a lot of endocrinologists get trained and are excellent practitioners in that area. When it comes to testosterone, unless an endocrinologist, takes on extra study, if you will, It's usually not. It's not all that well addressed from what I've seen with most. I'm generalizing here. Most experiences, with an endocrinologist. A urologist will see typically more males with low testosterone and treat it, in my experience again. And with females, low testosterone's usually treated first by what amounts to, in a lot of situations, their primary care physician who happens to be an OBGYN. And they're already used to dealing with adjusting their estrogen and progesterone and testosterone, particularly nowadays. Again, that the prescription of that is taken up by oftentimes by the OBGYN. So an endocrinologist, unfortunately, as of today, is probably not your best bet when it comes to addressing low T. And I know it makes total sense based upon the name, but in practice, I don't see it happening that often. So no, I'm not an endocrinologist, but I've made it my study and my practice. Most of what I do is hormone related. Anyway, I hope that helps. I hope it doesn't take away with anything I might be explaining here. With all things, I encourage everyone to look this stuff up yourself.
Yeah.
The question it really boils down to dose. 80 to 90 milligrams, in my experience, with a lot of patients with testosterone replacement therapy, unfortunately, that dose is probably going to act more like a kind of like a contraceptive does, like birth control does. It's enough of a dose of testosterone to stop your own endogenous production and actually lower your testosterone assay, make it lower, in other words, than if you weren't taking anything. Unless you took it, right after your 80 or 90, or, like 2 days after your 80 or 90 milligram dose. So it's actually stymieing your own production and obviously not providing much benefit. So in this gentleman's case, if you can find, and I don't recommend black market, obviously, but find another doctor. We're consultants, man. We're not the boss. Different lawyers going to give you a different take on how to handle a case. Doctors do too. A lot of doctors have different experiences. There's a lot of, go online. And I'm not talking about Dr. Google necessarily. The Time magazine articles, with all due respect to Time magazine. But, the peer-reviewed journals will have stuff that you go, wait a minute, this is 180 degrees different. I just read this study. It says it was okay to use in this situation. Yeah. And this one says no. Yeah. So doctors will have different ideas, just based upon that alone of how to do it and how not to. And not everything is published either. You might have a doctor that says, well, gosh, I've been doing this maybe even in a different country, and then they came here and they're licensed, and we find this works great. Again, I keep talking about other doctors. I don't know what it is about tonight, but Dr. Rosti over here was trained in Iran. Guy's brilliant with, like all kinds of diagnoses that don't involve laboratory assays, and his treatments are unique too, but they make total sense because he learned somewhere else with different tools. And It doesn't make his wrong or ours wrong. They're just different. But they, like they always say, more than one way to skin a cat. So anyway, I recommend this gentleman seek a different doctor, and I would bet that he'd find someone to prescribe, say, a starting dose of a couple hundred milligrams of testosterone cypionate once a week. Yeah. And that should be enough to leverage, assuming he's eating right, training right, and sleeping right, resting right, some muscle mass. Absolutely. Yeah. Accumulation of muscle mass. Yeah, just do the work. How old is this guy? Like 61?
43 now. 43 now.
Yeah, you got no excuses at 43, man. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You should be able to add some tea to the situation and remedy it quite quickly. So, I would just see if you get on a proper dose along with your proper AI as needed. And I bet you start, as long as you're doing the right thing, start putting on muscle mass if that's your main goal, and feeling a lot better too, I would imagine. Yeah. There are no contraindications. He mentioned he had acromegaly. He was producing too much growth hormone until they removed the tumor, more than likely. There's not a contraindication. As a matter of fact, it happens most often if the pituitary is damaged in such a way he's not sending a signal through the pituitary to his testicles. At age 43, you said, right. His testicles have probably said, well, you can send all the signals you want anyway. I'm not doing anything about it. He's probably got primary hypogonadism, which means his testicles wouldn't respond anyway. So it's actually quite often used in cases of a pituitary that's been damaged in some way. The pituitary can have a tumor on it. It can either make for more or less, depending on the type of tumor, of production of a certain hormone. So, if they've removed, did they say remove the pituitary or they removed the tumor anyway?
It sounds like a golf ball.
Might have damaged the pituitary. But again, bottom line is if you've got low T at that age, you're probably not going to treat it as secondary hypogonadism. HCG or something like that or Clomid use would probably not work. So you're probably going to have to add testosterone to it, and happens quite frequently. So no contraindication.
Yeah. Thank you, Doc.